Okay, here we are again. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session. Oh, I'm here on behalf of the Learning Abroad office. My name is Patrick Foley-Donoghue. We're going to be talking through funding, budgeting and funding today in eager anticipation of applications opening for exchange in the second half of 2026. So this is planning, good planning, and one of those key vital components of the planning stages is thinking about how you're going to fund, how you're going to pay for your overseas experience. So let's get into it. First, by way of introductions, just a quick little explainer of who we are and what we do. So as I said, my name is Patrick. I work in the Learning Abroad team. We're predominantly based in Sandy Bay, Social Sciences Building, room 379. We have open hours Tuesday to Thursday from 10 until 2. So you're welcome to drop in, make a booking with us, or just drop by and ask us questions or troubleshoot any issues that you might have. We're helpful. We're here to give you advice and guidance to direct you towards the right program for you. And we're experienced. Okay, so we're experienced with problem solving. A lot of our team have been on exchange programs ourselves as students, and many of us have worked in this position, in this role for over 5 years. So we've got a wealth of knowledge and experience. Okay, there's no problem too big or too small. The team, if you do reach out to us about anything learning abroad related, study abroad, exchange, different words meaning much the same thing. If you do reach out to us, these are the people that you're going to get a response from. Marnie, our manager of learning abroad, me, Patrick. My job is as the outbound coordinator to send students overseas. Georgia, inbound coordinator. She also looks after the new Colombo plan, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. And Kirsty, our advisor who works up in Launceston. So that's the team, that's us. Those are the people in the room. As I said, we're going to be talking about budgeting today. And this slide is essentially just to frame things up. Okay, so today it's about you, it's about your hopes, your dreams, what you're studying and what you want to get out of your studies, where you want to go, what you want to do. Okay, budgeting forms an important component of this. This underpins your exchange program. Said another way, exchange programs, overseas programs, study abroad programs, they cost money. And it's important that you make informed decisions about how much you need to save, how much it's going to cost. The reason we do that is because we don't want you having unnecessary financial stresses. Worst case scenario, you arrive overseas and you're like, oh, I've run out of cash. This is tricky. And we don't want that to happen, right? Good planning, plan for success. And by doing that, you sort of maximize your experience. And by maximize, I mean, you get the most out of it, okay? We want you to have enriching experiences. We don't want you worrying about cash and liquidity at the end of the day. We want you to be able to have a program, overseas experience where you get the most out of it, where you're open to new experiences, and maybe you can splash out and try some new and exotic things whilst abroad. I'll get into the nitty-gritty of this a little bit later on in the presentation, but just framing this up, we're here to understand how much this is going to cost and what sort of different pots of money are available to help you cover these expenses. That's where we come in, the Learning Abroad office, right? With our support, we're hoping to sort of spotlight some of the funding, the scholarships, and the different funding levers that you can pull to basically ease the financial burden of studying, of traveling abroad. So what we do, where we come in, we offer one-on-one advising, as I mentioned on the last slide. We also run next steps and pre-departure sessions. Okay, so later down the track after you've applied, we'll do a reminder session saying like, these are your next steps. It's now time for you to apply for scholarships, for example. And then we really zero in on some pre-departure information. So that's what we do. In progress, we're also developing cost sheets and some budgeting guides. So that's watch this space. But different countries, just put simply, different countries are going to have different costs of living. Okay, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but for example, if you went to Switzerland, that might be more expensive as a destination to visit and live in compared to, say, Indonesia, which is closer, but also the cost of living is lower comparably. Your dollars, your Australian dollars, don't go as far in Switzerland. And I guess what we're all here to talk about, in essence, is connecting students to funding opportunities. So Zoe, a little bit later, who's a student that's been on the New Colombo Plan scholarship, we promote these scholarship opportunities. I'm going to shine the light on a few of those today, but Zoe's going to talk a little bit about her experience. So why budgeting matters. Hopefully we've captured that, and also where the learning abroad come in, where our team come in to share these opportunities with you, things that you can do if you want. Another framing slide. Typically, I'm going to be talking about student exchange. Okay, so I just want to give you an overview of what that is for new people in the room. A student exchange is, well, as an overview, the University of Tasmania have partner universities all around the world. Okay, in the Americas, USA, Canada, Mexico, in Europe, in the UK, so France, Sweden, Germany, England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, beyond. We've got partners in Asia as well, Hong Kong, China, Japan, Singapore. So we're connected all around the world. We have partner universities. And with those partners, those are destinations, those are countries, those are partner universities that you can go and study at. The arrangement is you go and study there for 1 semester or a year, and we sort of swap students. We send you to a partner university and they send one in return. Now, the second point on the screen is you just continue paying your tuition fees to UTAS. Okay, so that's great. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to study at a different university, but keep paying your fees to UTAS. So there's no unexpected costs there of paying tuition fees to a university in the USA, for example. And as I said, the duration, okay, so where you're going, you can choose from 100 plus universities. How much it's going to cost you? Well, how much? You just keep paying those fees to UTAS. And the duration, how long? A semester or a year? Now, eligibility. Now, there's a lot on this page, but just as to frame this all up, to be eligible, you need to be enrolled in an eligible course. Okay. Start thinking about what degree you're studying. Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Business, Science, Law, Engineering, something in AMC. There are lots of different degrees. You can click on that link. I'll share the slides at the end of this. Click on the link. On our website and on the student portal, we have a list of eligible courses, a list of eligible degrees that are able to go on exchange. Okay? That's part one. Is your degree able to go on an exchange program? Yes or no? Next, do you have sufficient space in your study plan? Okay, so timing is important. When are you going to go? Typically, students go abroad in their second year. For law students, I believe they go in their third year. Different degrees have different structures, and students, each of you on the call now, are going to progress through your degree at a different rate. Sometimes you fail a subject. That's not the end of the world. Sometimes you're studying part-time, okay? And by studying part-time, you might go a little bit later in your degree, for example. So enrolled in an eligible course. Have sufficient space, the timing of when you would go on an exchange, how that lines up with your study plan. Have completed 100 credit points. That's just having completed 8 units at UTAS, 8 units at UTAS before departing. Okay. And then finally, maintain a GPA of 4.0 or above. That's just pass credit average or above. So as long as you're passing everything, you should be eligible to go on an exchange. We don't want to send students abroad who are failing classes, okay? There's an increased chance that you'll fail classes in an unfamiliar environment. Studying overseas is a challenge. It can be difficult, okay? And we don't want to send students who are already struggling. We don't want to send them abroad because that increases the risk to you. We're here to look after you, and we're here to guard your best interests. So there's a lot of information, but that's student exchange, and that's the eligibility criteria that we sort of overlay and assess students against. Okay, good place to start. Now the fun part, a lot of these images in the background, these are students who have been on an exchange program, who've been abroad. They've used their UTAS degree to get out there, to see the world, to add some enrichment, and experience. This is the fun part of your degree, in my opinion. So look at the photos. This is Taylor. She did a Bachelor of Arts and she studied in France for a semester. One of our partners, Sciences Po. And this is a thrilling stuff. This is a really wonderful part of my job, looking at the photos and hearing the feedback from students who have been overseas. So soak that up if you can. But I'm gonna keep going on through the prez. Thanks. Just to slide on budgeting. Okay, I want you to keep your eyes open on this one. Okay. Studying overseas, it is a life-changing experience, and I do this as a job because I went on an exchange experience myself. I went to Canada, and I loved it. I loved it so much. I do this as a job now, and I sort of like encourage everyone to do it. But it comes with financial responsibilities, and as a young person, as a young adult, your sort of adult life, if you will, these sorts of things can be new and sometimes daunting and scary. So, just on a page, I'm going to frame this up as fixed costs, some variable costs, and then maybe some hidden or unexpected costs. Okay, so just to start us off, fixed costs. Okay, some programs have tuition fees. With exchange, that's not the case, but some programs have tuition fees. We can talk about that a little bit later. There's an asterisk there because tuition, you just keep paying tuition to UTAS. That's something which you would otherwise expect, normal cost. Visas. Typically, students going abroad on an exchange program, going to another country, you're going to need a visa. If you go to somewhere in Europe, you might get a free visa as a tourist upon arrival. But as a student, typically you'll need a visa, and student visas cost money. Okay, so if you're thinking about going to a country on an exchange program, start thinking about how much the visa will cost. I can't give you an estimate because different countries have different visa costs. Okay, it's a bit ambiguous, but just keep an open mind to those costs. You will need to get a visa. How much will that visa cost? And flights. The flight amounts can change. If I went to New Zealand tomorrow, flights might be $800, more or less. If I went to Canada tomorrow, flights might be $2,500. Okay, so a fixed cost, something that which you know that you'll have to pay, is flights. You're not leaving Australia without jumping on an aeroplane, or maybe you want to go sailing. It's going to take you some time, but there you go. Fixed costs, program fees, visas, insurance, and flights. Now, just a point on insurance before I move on. As an exchange student, as a student going on an approved program at UTAS, we cover you with our corporate insurance, okay? And that's wonderful. It means that you sort of save money. Going on an approved UTAS program, you're covered by our insurance policy. So it's a saving. It's a really special, wonderful way for you to travel overseas, see the world, continue your degree, but also be covered by an insurance policy, which would otherwise cost you money. One of the perks of going on an exchange, one of the many, many perks. All right, so variable costs, okay, things which can fluctuate. Leisure and travel, okay, some people, like for example me, when I went on my exchange, I went to Canada, but I jumped over the border and visited New York during the summer break. I was like, hey, vacation, I've got a week off. I'm going to go on a little holiday. Jumped on a bus, spent 12 hours on a bus, and bingo, I was in New York the next day. And it's expensive there, okay? So it's good to have some cash to splash, but it's also those sorts of leisure activities, you want to have some savings, some money set aside for that. Accommodation, okay? Accommodation, country to country, accommodation, the flat, maybe the student accommodation that you're living in, they're going to radically vary in cost. Okay, sometimes you're paying a premium. You might be living in the penthouse and paying thousands of dollars a week, or you might be living in a share apartment with a fellow student. You might even be living in a dorm room. Okay, so the cost of accommodation is going to fluctuate and vary depending on your own preferences, your own choices, but also, and importantly, the country. Now, I read some feedback from a student recently who went to Ireland, and they've got a housing crisis there. These things can change year on year. Housing crisis, it means that accommodation in Ireland at this point in time skyrocketed, really expensive to get accommodation there. So these are things to start considering and thinking about. Cost of transport, how are you going to get around? Are you going to buy a bicycle while you're in Denmark? Or are you going to be walking everywhere? It's pretty cheap. Good way to get fit, keep healthy, keep active. But then again, maybe you're thinking, well, maybe I want to buy a car, or maybe I'll be catching trains everywhere. Different countries have different transport arrangements. So this is something that you can pay exorbitant amounts for. You could buy a car and be paying for fuel week on week, or maybe it's just you walk to school, you walk to uni every morning, and that's all you need. If you want to leave, you catch a bus. Another variable cost is food, right? If you go to the gym every day, if you're working out, maybe you're consuming boatloads of food. Maybe you're getting into some bulk nutrients. That's a random shout out for a Tasmanian company. But the cost of food in different countries can fluctuate. If you're eating out every night, maybe those costs will be high. Or maybe you're living off carrots and noodles and your costs are low. Okay, so there's big variation between how much you can spend on food each week, each month for a semester. So these are some things to start thinking about. Now, hidden costs. Okay, I want to try and demystify this and share as much information as I can. But when you travel abroad, you might need some vaccinations. You go to Indonesia, you might get a Hep B or a Hep C jab. You might get something for rabies, typhoid. There are all sorts of different diseases and or vaccinations which you need to be covered for. So vaccinations, they might cost you money to go to a GP and say, hey, I'm traveling to this country. What vaccinations do I need? So start thinking about that. Not so hidden anymore. Phone plans. Okay, we're all connected to the internet, I feel. We're doing this session online, okay? And data, the new gold rush, data. So useful. If you don't have data whilst you're abroad, if you don't have maps, you can get lost. It can be difficult to navigate your way around. It can be tough if you don't have data to keep in touch with your family, your friends, your loved ones. So my point here is start thinking about if you go to the USA or if you go to France for a semester on an exchange program, if you go on a short-term program for 3 weeks, what phone plan are you going to get? Are you going to get an eSIM? Are you just going to work it out when you get to the airport? And how much is that going to cost you? That's something that I want you to start thinking about today. And also, and really importantly, emergency funds, right? Sometimes things go wrong. I'll give you an example. We had a student that went to Switzerland last year, and he broke his leg unexpectedly, and he needed to pay his bill, pay his medical bill up front. And he was like, "Whoa, that was an unexpected cost." And I was like, "Goodness, how did you pay for that?" He's like, "Well, I had savings." And I was like, "Okay, that's kind of stressful." He's like, "I also got some scholarships." So I was pretty flush when I arrived. But at that point in time, if I didn't have emergency funds, well, I was going to be in big trouble. So sometimes things can go wrong and you'll need to pay up front. Pay your way out of trouble. Now, this is a really important consideration because sometimes it happens that something goes wrong and you're not able to pay for it. That's when you get in touch with our emergency provider, explain the context, and that they might be able to help you out. But hidden costs, vaccinations, phone plans, emergency funds, very important things to consider. Okay, game time. Phones at the ready. If you'll humor me, we've got 5 questions which I want to run through. You're all invited to participate. If you are accessing this on your own phone, you know, it's very difficult to scan a QR code when you're, this is only going to take 5 minutes. I just want to get some information about you and sort of and move this away from me just being in a lecture format. I'd love for you to chime in. We're going to ask some questions. First question is, where in the world would you go on exchange tomorrow? Name one country, right? What country are you interested in going? First one on the list is Ireland. I've been listening to a podcast. Japan, nice. Been listening to a podcast about Ireland, and I'm just fascinated. Japan, the UK, New Zealand, Denmark. Good news, folks. We've got partners in all of these different countries, in all of these different places, okay? We've got loads of partners in Denmark. We've got partners in Norway. We've got a couple of partners in Scotland, loads of partners across the UK and Scotland and Wales, and England. Japan, very popular. New Zealand, we've got 2 partners. And Ireland, I believe we have 2 partners. So good news. All right, well, thanks for participating. Next question. How much in total do you think your semester abroad would cost? Okay, and this can fluctuate, but just as an exercise. There's no wrong answers. I put down if I went to Ireland for a semester, maybe I could get away with doing it for 15 grand, maybe living on the cheap. 15 to 20, $7,000. I think you could do it. Maybe you could do it. 12 to 15, 22K. These are expensive programs. What I'm passionate about into the future is making it so that student exchange isn't a rich person sport. I want it to be available and accessible to everyone. Okay. But these are interesting price points. And look at that spectrum or that range, right? From 7,000 right the way up to maybe $22,000. There's a big range. So different countries, different costs. And also some people are very good at not spending cash. I'm amazed by this. So thanks. That's a really good insight into the people that we're talking to today. Flights, visas, accommodation, food, leisure, and other things that we've mentioned already. That's your price point. Really good. Next, how do you feel about your financial preparation, right? That's what we're here to talk about today. That's my response. I'm a bit nervous. If I went to Ireland tomorrow, I think I'd just be nervous full stop about lots of things. Someone's uncertain, nervous, uncertain. Okay, uncertain. That's good to hear. Today, we're trying to work through that uncertainty and get to something more concrete, something more reliable. Okay, we're going to start talking about the different pots of money which are available to people. But confident, ready, or something else, or worried. I actually expected that some people would be confident, no worries, I've got this sorted. But look, I'm glad that we've got some uncertain people here today. We're going to run through some answers to these questions. A couple more questions. What's your primary source of funding? We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but have you got savings? Are you banking on scholarships? Are you thinking about getting loans? Are you just hitting up the bank of mum and dad? Okay, someone's going with a loan. Scholarships, really important. Give it a couple more secs, but it looks like most people are banking on savings. Okay, some students are looking for scholarships, and maybe some others will be tapping into loans. Makes sense. Good news. We're going to get into that in a moment. Last but not least, what's your biggest financial concern? For me, it's the cost of living. I mentioned in Ireland that there is a bit of we'll call it a cost of living or an accommodation crisis there at the moment. It costs a lot to find a place to live for the short term. Budgeting. Okay, budgeting, big concern. Cost of flights, cost of living, budgeting. Someone's thinking about accommodation. Okay, nice. Good. This is good news, good information. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the next. So financial support, importantly, and they've got Christmas hats on because that's what it feels like sometimes when you get a scholarship or you get some money. Three main avenues of financial support, three main pots of money. University support, UTAS, wonderful people that we are. Okay, there's UTAS scholarships and grants. Okay. Study abroad and exchange scholarship is one that is run out of our office in conjunction with the scholarships team, and that's up to roughly $2,000. Okay, so that's something which you can apply for. It's based off the quality of your responses to the questions. So there's a question, answer the questions. If you answer them well, you get money. It's based off merit. Okay, there are scholarships which are based off merit, which is if you're a high achieving student, you get scholarships. Those are the perks of being a good student, right? A good hardworking student and getting good grades. But that's not all, right? There are also scholarships for financial need. And by financial need, I mean students that can articulate and explain the hardship that they're either experiencing now or anticipate that they'll experience by studying overseas, by challenging themselves, by dreaming big and going abroad. So UTAS scholarships, we assess over those three primary categories. How well you respond to those answers, let your passion and your personality shine, okay? Right, like a human being and respond to those questions. Merit, how good of a student are you? and demonstration of financial need. How much is your visa going to cost? How much is it going to cost you to live in country? We just did a back of the envelope budget just now. Okay, how much is it going to cost you? It's going to cost you $15,000. And you're going to ask for some scholarships to help pay your way. Okay, that's a big one. UTAS scholarships and grants. There's also the OS Help Loan. The OS Help Loan is a federal government scheme. It's the federal government saying it's valuable for our students to study overseas. And so they've arranged for a loan, a help loan, just like a HECS debt. You get the money now and you pay it back later. Now, the OS Help Loan is something for Australian students, so domestic Australian students. You can be undergraduate or postgraduate, and you can gain access to up to $9,500. Okay, that's a significant sum of money. So for Australian students here today, check it out. OS Help Loan, pop that into Google and learn about it. You can get it out twice, okay, up to 2 times. So if you go abroad for a year, that's over $18,000 that you have access to through loans. So that's internal, okay? That's university support. Now, external funding. Some of our partner universities offer scholarships. I got a message yesterday from City University of Hong Kong, that's one of our partner universities in Hong Kong, saying, hey, Pat, it's time for you to nominate students for this scholarship, okay? So we have partners in Hong Kong, City University of Hong Kong for one, the University of Gothenburg, at the time of recording, they offer scholarships for our students. Different universities will offer scholarships. There's it was once called the Crown Princess, now the Queen Mary Scholarship in Denmark. So we sent a lot of students to Denmark. I would say that smart students often follow the money. So they'll say, oh, there's a scholarship to go to France. Maybe I'll jump on that and I'll apply to one of the universities in France for an exchange program. So scholarships, massive perk. It's basically free money. If you're smart, you look into what scholarships are available and then use those scholarships to study overseas. There's government programs, the New Colombo Plan for one, NCP is what I typically call it. Don't be afraid. The New Colombo Plan, I'm going to talk through it at length. Wonderful, wonderful program, wonderful government initiative to send students to the Indo-Pacific. More on that later. Centrelink. So when I was a student at UTAS, I was receiving Centrelink, and by going on an exchange program, I was able to continue receiving my payments, my fortnightly payments. And that was incredible. That was just my food money, week in, week out, to help cover the costs of traveling and living abroad. And that was so, it's lucky and wonderful and rare that you'll be able to leave the country, but also be receiving government benefits. Wonderful system that we have. Okay, last heading on the page, student contributions, okay? Savings, really important. I can't move past this, but there is this element of having to work hard and save money. When I was saving up money before going abroad, I was putting away my pennies. I was like, do I go out for a coffee with a mate now? Or do I save that money and squirrel it away? Because I could buy myself a coffee whilst I'm in New York. And wouldn't that be a rush? Wouldn't that be an experience? So I was very tight-fisted, very canny, very savvy with my money, with my savings before going abroad. So being able to save where you can, big recommendation from me right now. And also part-time work. Some students volunteer their time whilst they're abroad on an exchange program. That will depend on your student visa. That's why it says where permitted. But importantly, really importantly, understanding your student visa conditions, maybe you'll be able to work 10 hours a week, maybe more, maybe less. So think about that. That might be something that you can do. Living and working overseas, it's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to save a bit of cash, earn a bit of cash, but also meet people who within your workplace. I like to remind people that work is also a great way to meet people and put yourself out there. So those are some of the financial mechanisms, support structures, the things that you can do to get money and help pay for your overseas experience. Good place to start. Now, I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to leave this presentation and come back to it. I'm going to click on this hyperlink, and I've titled it Finding Funding. Okay, so going back a slide, UTAS scholarships and grants. Where are they? You're all asking, right? Where can I find these scholarships and grants? Where can I find information on the different scholarships which are available? Now, I'm glad you're asking me that question because I've got a link here which will take me through to the website where you can start searching for the different scholarships. And when funding is available, where there is money to be earned, to be worked for, you can go to this website and you can search for yourselves, okay? Scholarship opportunities. It's important that you gather this information, and thank you for joining me today at this session because you get to see this part of the website. So maybe I'll ask for a little thumbs up from if you can see this this on the screen. This is Terradotta. This is our, thanks Callum, thanks folks. Okay, cool. It might look a bit skew-iffy because I'm on the big screen, but I'll try my best. So Learning Abroad, this is our website. This is the Learning Abroad page where we have a whole raft of different information. Okay, you can download the step-by-step guide. You can check out what information sessions are running, like the one today. You can click on the funding and scholarships button. If you scroll down the page, explore your overseas study options. We can search by keyword. So you can filter. I strongly recommend using the filters, and you can use the clear button to clear. So I've got the scholarships filter. I'm just going to clear that. These are some previously viewed programs. This is where you can essentially look at the different partners, partner universities in the different countries that you can go and study in. As an example, let's look at Austria and Belgium, first couple of cabs off the rank. We've got 4 options. These are the countries, and these are the partners. We've got 3 partners within Austria and Belgium. So if you're looking for programs, you can search by country, or you can search by study area. Technology, saving us time and effort. Basically spoon feeding the information. I love it. Okay, cool. So enough on that. We're talking about funding and scholarships. I'll stop waffling. Let's click the funding and scholarships button and see what happens. Okay, looks like it's all the same. Little scholarships program filter. Cowabunga bingo. So we've got 11 matches. Nicholas Bolden Travel Grants, the JASO Scholarship, there's the OS Help Loan. We talked about that already. Aarhus University, Shanghai Ocean University China Link, got NCP Mobility Grants, Study Abroad and Exchange, City University of Hong Kong I mentioned, Klagenfurt, Lucerne, and the New Colombo Plan Scholarship. So these are some different scholarships, some different pots of money which you can click on and learn a little bit about. So to start, let's look at, I haven't talked about the Nicholas Bolden, so let's see what's going on here. There's Mont Saint-Michel, that's a beautiful cathedral in France, which I want to visit. Nicholas Bolden Travel Grant. So here you can get an overview, you can learn about the eligibility, and you can learn about the application process. I think that's enough said. This is where you can start learning about the different pots of money, what they're valued at, potentially when the application deadline is, and maybe how you go around or how you go about applying for it. I see some questions coming through. I think that's excellent, but that's the application. This is where you find funding, which is run or supported by the University of Tasmania. I'm going to leave it there and go back to the PowerPoint. If I get a thumbs up, just make sure that we're all on the same page. How are we looking? Nice one. Thank you, team. All right, back on this page, as I said, scholarship opportunities, gather the information, make an informed decision about where you want to go and how you're going to pay for it. Okay, the New Colombo Plan, as promised, okay? The New Colombo Plan has 2 streams, okay? The New Colombo Plan Scholarship, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and the New Colombo Plan Mobility Program. NCPS for scholarship, NCPM for New Colombo Plan Mobility. So we'll talk about NCPM first, okay? If you hear NCP, if you hear the word New Colombo Plan, it's the federal government throwing money at Australian undergraduate students to study overseas as a part of their degree, okay? Get credit, study overseas in the Indo-Pacific region. So mobility programs, the shorthand for that is they're typically short-term programs. So the federal government, they give the University of Tasmania money to fund projects, little overseas exchange projects, short-term programs and the like. So for those who have or those who haven't heard of Unigo, That's a fully funded program. It's a game changer. We send 140 students abroad in January each year to either Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam. We pay for flights, accommodation, visas. It's a game changer. It's immense. It's an enormous flagship initiative, and it's used, or rather it uses the funding from NCP Mobility. So behind the scenes, we get money from the government to pay for programs where you get to go overseas for anywhere from 4 weeks to 1 year. Short-term programs. We also run nursing placements, so nursing students on the line. We typically run NCP mobility programs to India and Nepal. And importantly, we've signed on recently with the CRICOS, the Australian Consortia for In-Country Indonesian Studies. That's a bit of a mouthful. At CRICOS, there's a hyperlink there. Click and search. That's something I can advise. But also, they offer scholarships for our students, anywhere between $7,000 and $10,000 for students who want to do Indonesian language training, something in media and journalism. They might do a professional practicum in law or in business. So for students in any of those subject areas, check out the CRICOS. They offer big scholarships to study in Indonesia for a semester. Check it out. So that's NCP Mobility, the short-term programs. FYI, for your information, those on the call, this is to be confirmed. So there's a bit of a risk here, but we've put in grant funding applications for Singapore, for Hong Kong, for Vietnam, for Malaysia, and Japan. Okay, we've sent a lot of students through Japanese language to Japan. It's a bit of a no-brainer, but we've asked for $15,000. We've got 4 scholarships in the pipeline for Singapore, 2 for Hong Kong, 4 for Vietnam, 2 for Malaysia, and 4 for Japan. So good news, next year, we're going to be sending loads of students to these destinations with these scholarships. Okay, we talked about maybe it's going to cost you $15,000 to go to Japan. Guess what? We've got a scholarship for that exact amount. So that's really exciting. We'll have an announcement, I think, in December around NCP mobility. So watch this space. There's more funding coming soon. Moving on then, NCPM to NCPS, the New Colombo Plan Scholarship. This is a big one, okay? You need to sit up in your chairs and pay good attention. The NCP Scholarship, it's a flagship initiative of the federal government, okay? And it's designed, its whole purpose is to remove financial barriers for undergraduate students seeking to undertake an overseas experience as part of their degree, okay? Get credit, study overseas for anywhere from 3 months to 19 months. You could go abroad for a year, tack on an internship, and the federal government's going to pay for it. It's wonderful, wonderful and unique experience. And Zoe, I hope you're ready. I think we're going to talk to you about what you did, where you went, and how you feel reflecting upon your wonderful experiences. But just in 3 quick dot points, it's a prestigious program targeting future leaders. I think we've nominated something like 42 students for next year. Applications will open, I'm expecting around March, April, May next year. More news on that later. So if you want to study abroad, if you want to go on an exchange in 2027, this program will run again next year. Runs year on year, annual scholarship. We're sending about nationally across Australia. It's competitive. We send about 300 students abroad on this scholarship each year. So 300 places. I think that's set to increase to up to 500 places in 2028. So what I'm saying is it's competitive, but there's also a lot of places. So, you know, you've got to be in it to win it, folks. Now the value, now this is the dollar signs piece. It's up to $107,000 per scholar. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of cash. That's going to pay for your flights, accommodation, and more. So there's a photo of Jolie. She was doing a Bachelor of Marine Antarctic Sciences, and she studied in the South Pacific, the University of South Pacific in Fiji. Just collecting starfish and getting bulk cash. Very exciting, wonderful, lucky human being, very switched on, and raves about the New Colombo Plan Scholarship. Just quickly, where can you go? We've got a big long list of countries. I think they've cut it down to, that's 40, but I think they've cut it down to 38 different countries. The countries that are bold, so Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, China, Japan, and Singapore, those are places where we have partner universities where we can easily, and I mean easily, send you on an exchange program. So those are the best trod paths, but you can choose, you can go rogue and go to Sri Lanka, Taiwan, Thailand, Tonga, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, Vietnam. The world is your oyster. You've got choices to make. Those are some of the places that you can go with the new Colombo Plan scholarship. Okay, that's just a scholarship. It's not a limitation on the places that you can go on exchange. Remember, you can go to anywhere in Asia, in the USA, Mexico, Canada, and the Americas, throughout Europe. Okay, this scholarship is designed for these places. I get to take a little break and have a sip of water. Zoe, if you're there still, I've got some questions for you. And
Go for it.
I would encourage anyone on the line to basically chime in and this is a quick and dirty, quick fire questions with Zoe. But Zoe, if you can tell us maybe just to start, following on from the new Combo Plan Scholarship Sizzler and explainer that I did, can you tell us a little bit about your experience and what you did and how that played out for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining. As Patrick said, this is a really important first step because these experiences are expensive. So knowing what different options there are is really key information. So I spent 1 year living in Nepal and I did a semester at Kathmandu University where I did environmental science. And then I did an internship with a public policy NGO. And then I was researching climate governance with them and also doing language training throughout. So one of the really key benefits of New Colombo Plan is the opportunity to do not only study, but internship and language, which is now a really crucial part of it as well. So it means you have quite a diverse experience. And that last point I put that's my sort of academic background. So I actually graduated my Bachelor of Marine and Antarctic Science with honours before I started my overseas experiences because I was enrolled in a Bachelor of Philosophy. And you might have heard of this already. If not, definitely check it out because this degree, pretty much you can use it to study different things in different places. And this is also important because there's a lot more scholarships when you're an undergrad student. So if you can say, I'm doing this extra Bachelor of Philosophy, which is funded by the university, it's a HECS-free degree. It means you can get into these different experiences and there's almost no restrictions on what you can do. So this is why I was able to study environmental science, having a bit of a break from marine science, being far away from the ocean as well. Yeah.
I think we've got some other slides. Thanks, Zoe. That's a really good way to frame up the NCP, but also give a little insight. If I could just say, I love the photos. This is something which I was going over over the last couple of weeks, just looking at the photos and your adventures on this program. And I think that, I mean, just I guess a comment is, I'll make it a question. How did you find balancing the sort of academic rigor of this program with getting around and seeing the world, seeing Nepal and the surrounding, we'll say, countryside?
Yeah, I was grateful to have done a lot of travel throughout the 1 year I spent in Nepal. That was a benefit of having a 6 week holiday during my university semester, which is something I found out when I was in country. This was for different religious and cultural holidays. So it meant I could use 6 weeks to do trekking and go and do different sort of safaris. A lot of people don't know in Nepal there's subtropical rainforest, lots of rhinos and elephants, so getting to make the most of that as well. And just on weekends, you could do lots of day trips as well. So yeah, making the most of when visitors came. So I was able to see quite a lot throughout the year.
Let's talk highlights. I mean, you said rhinos, and I just want to segue this entire presentation into talking about my obsession with large exotic creatures. But let's talk highlights. I've got a couple of points on the screen which you noted: language immersion and the sort of the cultural exchange that was. Can you tell us a little bit about each of these dot points?
Yeah, so I think looking back, I probably wouldn't have guessed this was maybe my highlight before doing the experience, but the language immersion was such a critical part of the time I spent in Nepal, particularly because obviously English is not the primary language. And also cultural exchange. It was my first time in South Asia, so it was a really big contrast to like Western societies, and there was a lot to learn. And having the language skills from doing language training throughout the year meant that I was able to not only communicate day-to-day life, but also towards the end of my program, where I had more fluency in Nepali, I was able to then attend different conferences that were 100% spoken in Nepali. So these were opportunities that I wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't, developed those skills. And of course, Nepali people get, or I think any people in their country get really excited when foreigners trying to learn the language, and it's a really respectful thing to do in countries that you're spending time in as well. In terms of the second point, yeah, building relationships are very much linked to that language and cultural immersion. And these are relationships not only, yeah, with locals and of course regional sort of experts that I was able to connect with, but these relationships, ones that I'm still connected with. For example, I'm not sure if anyone saw, there was recent Gen Z movement in Nepal, really big protests. So I was checking in with my uni friends, making sure they were safe because some of them had attended. Also recent holidays in Nepal, FaceTiming my Nepali family I lived with. And I've got some ongoing professional stuff I'm engaged with as well. So I'm very much still connected to Nepal. And then, yeah, that final point, as sort of mentioned before, being able to explore a really diverse country that spans from like the lowest elevation is like 80 meters in the south and then goes all the way up to Everest at, almost 9,000 meters. So there's a lot of different environments that I was excited to nerd out about as well.
The ear-popping extremes of Nepal. That's yeah. Look, I'm getting excited just hearing about it, and very envious that you've been able to travel so far and see so much, Zoe. That's so thrilling. And just on your point around language immersion, I just like kudos to you. That's so wonderful. I know that a lot of people in Australia typically uh, shy away from the idea of learning languages because can be cringe not being immediately good at something, right? And I think that's yeah, really testament to you to put yourself out there and put yourself through that, or ordeal, that really great humbling activity of trying to learn a language. I had that yesterday speaking to some Korean people who I met just in passing, and I said "Annyeong," and they were like, "Whoa, amazing! He knows how to say hello." So it's a yeah, really endearing and respectful thing to do to try and make people feel included and welcome. I think that's so good. For those people on the call, I mean, Zoe, precious resource and a wealth of experience. I strongly encourage you to light up the chat if you haven't already. I can see Georgia's been sharing some info on the new Colombo Plan Scholarship, but um, otherwise, Zoe, I'm just going to pepper you with questions.
Mhm.
But yeah, good to see some cues coming through. So maybe you can tell us. I'll read through the chat and maybe ask you a couple of questions at the end, Zoe, if that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, can you tell me about what's this slide about? Skills, career, reflections. Talk to us. Wonderful photo as well. I love the
Mhm.
color here. But yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what you've maybe developed in and of the knowledge, the skills, the attributes that you've developed from undertaking
Yeah,
this program?
absolutely. So yeah, starting with skills gained. And cross-cultural communication is a really big one, and that's not only to do with having some language skills, but having some cultural understanding as well, and cultural understanding for ones that are really different to your own. And I found this is a really important skill as I'm interested in, and still overseas at the moment, but interested in further engagement in different regions. But it's also incredibly important back in Australia because we obviously have such a multicultural community. And in Hobart, for example, more than 10,000 Nepalis. So I'm pretty excited when I get back to engage with this community and being able to keep my language skills up as well. The second point, enhanced adaptability and resilience. This is one of the critical sort of selection criteria in the application. And I did, as sort of doing the application, I had some examples of this, but I've been able to build a lot more since. Thank you. Just been brought a coffee, very lucky. And um, yeah, being able to, of course, being thrown into a different country was my first time overseas solo as well. First time in South Asia at all. So a myriad of different challenges that I could talk about for a lot longer than we have available today. And the third point, policy and networking skills that I didn't have already. I really use this scholarship to not only study science in a region far away from the ocean and at the top of the world, but also to get experience in policy because my science degree didn't have any of that. And I know that's, there's a, critical gap with science policy, and that's an area I want to move into. So I forced myself to, do a policy internship and be surrounded by lawyers that they spoke a different language, being Nepali, but also different, law terminology. That was all a bit of a jump for me. Next point, career impact enabled me, as sort of mentioned, enabled me to push beyond marine science into environmental and policy. And you don't know until you try different things about what you're interested in, what you don't like as well. So I really encourage any opportunity to do that. Also inspired my future work in South Asia and governance interests. So I'm still in South Asia. I'm in Sri Lanka at the moment, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And then in terms of governance interests, I've applied for some different jobs that are stepping a bit further away from science into a new area that I'm interested in. And of course, building ongoing connections, which I mentioned a bit in the previous slide. In terms of professionally, I'm currently working with two different NGOs back in Nepal as a voluntary researcher. And this is on, climate governance, climate justice. And these were sort of seeds that I purposely sowed when I was there because I would like to return there to work in the future as well. Reflections, the importance of exposure to different cultures and perspectives, just to be a better human, but also to be able to tackle different, problems creatively as well, and respectfully. Power of community. Nepali people are incredible. It's not too much more to say about that. And then, yeah, it was a year of constant learning. I really did approach it sort of as a sponge and just took in everything about Nepal, just being in the country for, more than a couple of weeks for an entire year meant I got to live through all the different seasons, which was interesting. Of course, different religions, cultures, politics, and a very different environment. So a lot to learn. So I really enjoyed that part of it as well.
But I like the idea there, Zoe, of going in and sort of sponging up as much as you can. I think that's really terrific. I also see that we had a question come through from those attending today, relating to the NCP scholarship. The question is, how much control did you have over the funds? So I know that it was a large dollar sum. It's $107,000. That's up to, right? You don't just. My understanding is you're not just given $107,000 and and go for broke. How much control did you have over the funds? And and can you tell me a little bit about how they were spent and were your needs met? Did you cover costs? How did that play out?
Yeah, so great question. No, you do not just get transferred 107,000. I don't, that's not good for anyone's, particularly someone in university. Um, you have a case manager and everything's sort of categorized. So, for example, for flights, you get allowance. In total, it's 3 grand. So they'll give you 1,500 before you leave, and just before you leave to go overseas, and just before you book flights to return to Australia, you'll get the final allowance. So they really set you up to spend well and have it everything budgeted. And then in terms of when you land in the country, I don't know if this has changed. It seems the amount is maybe increasing a little bit, but you get like an establishing allowance. I think that was like 4,000. And then each month you get a stipend. So that is 3,000 a month. Now I'm just spitting out numbers, but just trying to show you the different sort of categories. And then when you're thinking about university tuition, language training, they pay those directly. So in my case, I wasn't at a partner university, so I was an international fee-paying student, and that just meant that the government directly paid that invoice. And in terms of, yeah, cost of living in Nepal comparatively to Australia is very cheap. It's not like the examples of living in Switzerland or Ireland. I had a lot of savings from the scholarship. I can, I'm not afraid to share that I ended up saving like $10,000 on the scholarship because each month I would, barely spend 1,000 of the $3,000 stipend. So they give you a standard amount regardless of if you're going to Nepal or if you're going to Singapore. So they have to sort of account for the different cost of livings. And if you then are, going to somewhere like Nepal or Indonesia where the Australian dollar goes further, you just have added some added benefits that you might have some savings. And you can also, of course, use this money to travel in country as well. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's a terrific answer. Thanks Zoe, and thanks for giving some insights to the breakdown of how you receive funding. I realize because I've been waffling on, and it's not you, it's me, but we've got a minute left, Zoe. So if we can race through this, I think we've got 2 slides after this talking about the deadlines. But can you tell me a little bit about the Crawford Fund Student Award? I'm not so familiar with this, so I'm curious. So please, if you can stay on the line, folks, I expect we might go over, but Zoe, over to you.
Great. Yeah, I'll quickly head through it. Thanks, Patrick. So, the Crawford Fund Student Award, as the award overview says, is supports young Australians in agriculture and development to undertake short-term projects overseas. And this is predominantly for developing nations, so regions like Asia, Africa, and in the Pacific. And it provides different funding for internships, for conferences, mentoring, and essentially you can propose a project or you can ask for one. And this funding might be anywhere between 3 to 5,000 and quite a varied duration. So the reason I got into this, and I'm joining you from Sri Lanka today, is because the New Colombo plan was meant to support me to come to Sri Lanka after Nepal, because it's still, in the Indo-Pacific, and I organized the internship. It was to their objectives, but then they became more strict. So they said, we're not gonna support you to go to Sri Lanka. And then I was like, okay, I need to find some other funding because these things are still expensive and everything. So then I actually asked UTAS for ideas, and I was able to find out about the Crawford Fund, applied for it. I was the only TAS recipient this year. Might have been the only one who applied. Don't know. Doesn't matter. I still got it. But yeah, I'm doing a marine ecology internship in Sri Lanka, and getting it accredited to a unit back at UTAS. And the main sort of pitch of this award as well is about global food security. That's what the organization is working towards. And important for me because I wanted to stay in South Asia, get some more exposure to different areas, challenges, and knowledge systems as well. Yeah, that's a quick wrap up.
Zoe, thanks. That's terrific. I've learned something, and I'm really thrilled. That's you've really sort of highlighted for me. Just there's no shame in asking, right? I think you're very wise in asking the UTAS team to find out what sort of scholarships might be available, right? You don't know what you don't know, so ask the question, and you've got a scholarship out of it. I think that's tremendous. That speaks volumes about your character. Well done, and safe travels in Sri Lanka. For those still on the call, thanks for bearing with us. A couple more slides to race through, and then Zoe, I'm not sure if you have some time to stick around and ask her any questions. Sometimes people are shy, that happens, but we'll stop the recording and then we'll take questions at the end. So just to by way of wrap up, if that's okay with everyone, the last couple of slides look like this. Exchange applications. Okay, for those in the know, this is an important sort of deadlines to keep in your mind. If you want to study overseas on an exchange program at one of our partner unis, if this is sort of excited you in those sorts of ways, semester 2 2026. Okay, this time next year we'll say applications open at the end of this month and they will close on the 28th of February next year. Okay, so you've got a bit of time. You've got roughly 4 months between now and then to think about who you are, what you're studying, and where you want to go, and what sort of scholarships you might apply for. If you're thinking a bit longer, drawing a longer bow, looking further down the line in your degree, for Sem 1 2027, applications will open, we'll say the middle of next year, 30th of May, and close on the 30th of July 2026. So some things to think about. We'll now take some questions. I'm going to stop the recording, but I want to say thank you to all of you who have come here to learn, and especially to Georgia, who's been working on the chat, and Zoe. I think that's you, right, in the Himalayas, perhaps. I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your story and some insights about your journey ongoing through the NCP and beyond. So thank you. If you can stick around, great, and we'll take some questions. Cheers.